Anti-calls, guys, there are only two moves that I need you to always keep in mind. The move e4 and the move c4. And I know it's already looking a little bit weird, but before we get deeper into it, let me tell you why I've waited so long to tell you how to play against the anti-collie. If you remember, on lesson 104, we learned how to use it, how to play it, the different pawn structure, typical middle game positions. But you asked me, what do I do if they play bishop f5? What do I do if they play bishop g4? And I just told you, get to the middle game. Because guys, believe it or not, you have already enough foundation after over 200 lessons to know what to do here. And I know that a lot of you are like, really, foundation? I don't know. But just to give you a very specific example, on lesson number 96, very long lesson, I showed you how I like to play our Pierce defense against the burnt variation. Well, one of the things that I mentioned is that every time they develop these queenside bishops so early in different openings, we try to punish them by putting pressure on that b2 pawn. They left the queenside vulnerable, so we try to take advantage of that. I know nothing to do with the collie, but if we go back to this position, actually bishop f5, bishop g4, it doesn't matter. We have the same thing. b7 could be a target. So again, whenever I see this bishop g4 or bishop f5, I'm going to think of the move c4. Now, a lot of you might be asking, okay, what about that e4 move? It doesn't make any sense. Well, you're going to see how tricky this could get. Now, c4, I'm already offering them to take me and I get to develop by taking back. That's very nice. So e6, the bishop is already out. And now, guys, the move queen to b3. Just remember, they developed the bishop early. I'm going to bother them right away. Now, there are a few ways to deal with this. b6 is where you're going to get a lot. As you move up the ladder, you're going to see what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you like 2-3 games, sample games, for you to see that sometimes black pieces play queen c8 in this position, right? Now, let me start with b6. Now, b6, pay attention, light squares automatically are getting weaker. The light square bishop is gone. Most likely it's going to get traded at some point. And with these pawns on dark squares, in contrast, they weaken the light squares. So what do we want? Well, bishop b5, knight e5, very, very attractive. So after b6, knight goes to e5. We know this is thematic. We talked about it. Now bishop f5, and of course we trade on d5, followed by bishop b5, guys. And already we start putting pressure. Now, if I show you the evaluation, you're gonna see that it's already 2.25, right? So after bishop b5, knight b to d7, and now we have the other move that you cannot forget. If you're not familiar with these positions, you're not gonna think of it probably unless you are a really strong player. But if you've seen this before, you're gonna remember, oof, what about pawn to e4? And that's what I told you, c4 and also e4. Of course, taking with the pawn, that's checkmating one move. That's something that I could do as the black pieces. If instead they take, let's say, with the bishop, again, look at that, 3.88, 4.23, this is already really nice for the white pieces. Now, from here, you could continue with knight c3, castle. It's just very comfortable position for the white pieces. Of course, feel free to, just like we learned on lesson number 72, feel free to review more games where people have played this variation. That way you know exactly how they continue. But again, if you have been with me from the beginning, after over 200 lessons, you should be able to convert this. And before we put this away, if I go back, guys, with this knight on f6, let's say they take with the bishop, there's always this bishop g5 again. So it's just a matter of you analyzing this a little bit further and of course applying what we've learned up to this point. And by the way, if they take with the knight, you could either take on d5 or you could just castle and continue to put pressure. Knight c6 is always in the air, very comfortable position. Now, before I show you those sample games, let me tell you guys, one of them you're gonna see what to do if they play queen c8. You're also going to see what to do if they play bishop takes. I know that a lot of you are thinking, okay, what if they take, messing up my king side? Well, you could take, or you could take on b7 like you're going to see in one of those games. Now, before that, let me go to this bishop f5. We're going to the same thing. Pawn to c4, trying to get to b3. Important that you understand the ideas, not just memorize the theory, right? So c4, challenging the center, queen's gambit ideas, and trying to bring the queen to b3. e6, queen to b3, straightforward. b6, we go knight to c3, just developing, and then after h6, trying to hide the bishop, we go pawn takes, pawn takes. This exchange in the center is thematic, important that you start seeing it, guys, because soon we're going to start learning the Queen's Gambit opening exchange variation. Very interesting line. And again, after we do the trade, once more you have pawn to e4. So you can see how the same idea they could apply in both when they play bishop g4, when they play bishop f5. Now, evaluation, roughly equal, but it's so tricky to play this as the black pieces. Now, if they take on e4, automatically, look at that, evaluation, it goes up to 160, 146, knight goes to e5, and even if they go back, we get just a lot of initiative. Now, I can see someone not so experienced even taking on d4, and guys, this is already completely winning for the white pieces. Again, 204, 190, and all that we need to do is bishop takes e6, hitting f7, and of course, we're going in with everything we've got. So just to show you how tricky this could get all of a sudden. If they take with the knight, you have the same d5 deal that you could capture after. If they take with the bishop, well, we got knight e5, putting the knight where it belongs, and then bishop b5. So guys, more than anything, remember where your pieces belong. With any opening, not only memorize the moves or the theory, try to understand where the pieces typically go, the why, and everything is going to be much easier. So let's say c6, you got knight takes, bishop d3, bishop takes, and then after bishop f4, this is just really comfortable to play as white. Like you can see ideas such as knight f7, queen takes, d6 is now hanging. So little tactics that are going to be thematic in this position. Now, I know that I'm going really fast, but there's not much more to these guys. If you apply what we learned on lesson 72, you review games after, it's going to be much, much easier. Now, first game that I wanted to show you after bishop g4, let me go back actually. Bishop g4, c4, e6, queen b3, bishop takes f3. Now, in this game, they played queen takes b7, then knight b to d7, pawn takes. And guys, what I want you to see is that now, yes, pawn structure is destroyed, but we learned when we talked about doubled pawns that they have benefits such as semi-open files to attack. Also, you could always castle first, move the king to the corner, and then use the file to attack like we learned on lesson number 190 something, right? So just to show you a few more moves of this game, knight c3, castle, c takes d5, queen a7, bishop h3, and then they simply castled. A little bit counterintuitive, but now my king is just pretty safe on the king side. Guys, if you look at the evaluation, 139 for white, notice that these are pretty strong players, 2,500 players, and they made inaccuracies here and there, and that makes it just much more realistic. So with that said, you can find these games in the database like we learned already, but let me go to the next game. So this one, another bishop g4, we have the same c4, e6, queen b3, and now queen c8. So this is a move that you're going to see the most. And then we got the same knight e5. Thematic, bishop goes to f5, knight c3 just developing, and after bishop d2, pawn takes, rook c1. Again, lesson 190 something, I showed you how Bogojubov, he played a few games like this. Rook belongs on the c file, then f4, thematic of the Collie. This is not exactly the Collie, but we use the same ideas. We're memorizing ideas, not specific strings of moves, right? So after castle, bishop e2, bishop f3, castle. And by the way, guys, right here, there was already a tactic like f5. So something to keep in mind. If f5, bishop takes, then thanks to this pin, we could collect on d5. Now they castled, and then they played f5 anyways. So bishop takes, knight c6, and I'm not gonna go too deep into this. Look, this is already 448 for white, but just to show you how these quiet positions could easily turn into something very aggressive if you know what you're doing. And to make it even better, not many people are familiar with this. They know bishop f5, bishop g4 are uncomfortable for white, but they don't really study it as much as you if you play this as your main opening. So I'm gonna leave it here. White is completely winning, and let me show you the last game. This one, same bishop g4, pawn to c4, and After queen c8, the same, knight e5, knight c3, bishop d2, and knight goes to f3. So they're going back. And this game, I wanted to just show it to you for you to see. After move number 9, this is a pretty equal position. The white pieces are not playing as energetically, but still you get a very playable position. So bishop d6, they're going after the bishop, and sooner or later you're going to collect it. Bishop g2, and if you look at the evaluation, 0.66, so it's not like you're winning, but again, it's a very playable position. The more you review games, the more you're gonna learn different ideas. Now that I see this bishop, this h3 g4 idea, I want to tell you one last thing before we go. If we take a look at this position from the beginning, you could play c4, or you could play h3, g4. This is another way to play against it with ideas of h4, h5. I'm not going deep into it because I'm not a fan of it, but just know it's a very interesting possibility. You're going to let me know in the comments which one you like more, if you want me to go deeper into this h3, g4, or if you're comfortable with pawn to c4. Like I've been announcing so much, soon we're going to be learning the Queen's Gambit exchange variation deep. So stay tuned, and if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in our next lesson.